They were the heroes from the future. Teenagers protecting the universe from those that would sow the seeds of chaos. Each had unique powers and abilities. And though they often had their differences, they came together to save the day as the Legion of Superheroes. Now, you can be a part of their adventures and learn the history of the future in the Legion Clubhouse.
Clark Kent, He-Man, and the Masters of the Universe. Oh no, that's not what we're talking about in this week's Legion Clubhouse. We're talking about Adventure Comics number 305.
305.
Adventure Comics number 305, Secret of the Mystery Legionnaire. Published February 1963, written by Jerry Siegel with art by John Forte. Marvel Lad aims to replace the fallen Lightning Lad, but is he the hero he seems to be?
There's one interesting thing about Adventure Comics 305 that I wanted to get off my chest right away. A lot of people who've been listening to this show know that we have not been talking about every single appearance of the Legion of Superheroes. We've only been talking about like their core stories where they feature prominently in the story.
Correct.
Adventure Comics 305 has 2 Legion of Superhero appearances. The one that we're going to talk about, The Secret of the Mystery Legionnaire, but in Clark Kent He-Man, at the very, very end, when they're trying to figure out who is this mysterious Superboy running around, turns out it's Chameleon Boy in disguise. You don't find out until the very end, and it really doesn't serve a purpose other than, I'm Chameleon Boy, and I was traveling back from the future when I saw that you needed trouble, Clark, so I decided to disguise myself as Superboy and step in. Wah, wah, wah.
Give my regards to the Legion, boy.
And then bye-bye, and then he's off. And so
yeah, he's 3 panels.
That is a prime example of why we haven't read every single Legion of Superheroes or talked about every single Legion of Superheroes appearance, because a lot of them are just that. A 3-page, I just stepped in to save your ass kind of moment, and then I'm away. But in Tales of the Legion of Superheroes, again, the second story in this issue, we have a mystery legionnaire who appears out of nowhere. Who could this mystery lad be? Or I should say, who could this Marvel lad be?
Right. Mystery Lad is another guy. He's later. Interestingly, they actually give us a strong hint in the very first paragraph of the story. Each and every member of the Legion of Superheroes has at least one superpower. One day, however, along comes a youth who's not only as mighty as Superboy and Mon-El, but invulnerable to both kryptonite and lead.
I wonder what that could mean.
I wonder what it could.
The artist in this, John Forte. I got to tell you, on that splash page, yes, I'm loving what Sunboy's hair is doing.
Yeah, Sunboy has got like a serious kind of Ricky Nelson flippy dippy thing going on.
It looks great. It looks freaking great. And then even Shrinking Violet looks good too. I think all of them look good. It's just a really nice example of comic book art from the 60s that could stand up to anyone today.
Forte does something interesting with the characters' hairstyles in every issue to keep them specific and keep each character with a unique hairstyle, because Cosmic Boy has this little kind of side part comb over thing, and Mon-El has his hair swept through the front, and Bouncing Boy has this doofy little bowl cut, which I think is fascinating. But
yeah, it's all kind of cool.
Boy always has a little pompadour going on.
So last time on Legion Clubhouse, we learned of the death of Lightning Lad, and everyone in this issue is still reeling and shocked from his death. I mean, they're so shocked. Haha, get it? They are so upset over his death.
It just happened.
They are visiting his crypt every single day to view his body under that glass coffin.
Okay, these are teenagers. Now, this
creepy teenagers visiting a grave late at night to see the crackling remains of their fallen foe, or their fallen friend.
When I was in college, we were all 19 or 20 years old. One of our peers actually did pass away in a complicated circumstance. And to this day, 35 years later, one of my friends always takes a moment on Super Bowl Sunday to mark that having had happened.
But do they go to the grave?
Well, I don't know. I don't know where to
See.
I don't leave my living room. I stay home and I yell at Siri and see if my wife will bring me a glass of water.
So last time, Matthew, you said that we got our first statue of the memory of Lightning Lad, and this was the first of many. This issue kicks off, and second panel in, and we've got not only a statue of Lightning Lad, but we have one of Mon-El and Sunboy. Now, to
Those
my
are
knowledge,
live statues.
What's a live statue?
Well, you know how sometimes you see a statue and you have to count the number of
fingers
the horse has on the ground.
Oh, okay. I did not know this.
A horse with 2 feet on the ground means that the guy died in battle, and 3 feet on the ground means something different. And all 4 feet on the ground means that the horse was really, really heavy. I don't know what, I know that that's a thing.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No, it's true, supposedly. The number of hooves the animal has on the ground is indicative of something.
Well, how do you know that these are living statues and not?
Because they don't say in memory of.
Well, that's true, too.
Duh.
But why Mon-El and Sunboy? Why not? Where's Saturn Girl? Where's Cosmic Boy? I mean, they were the founders. They should have statues before Mon-El and Sunboy.
They're on the other side of the room.
Oh, they just can't show us that.
The Mon-El and Sunboy thing may also be another hint.
Oh, another hint of things to come. Well, with Lightning Lad out of the way, the doorbell rings, and this kid walks in and goes, "Hey, I heard you're all out of Lightning Lads. That means you're looking for a new character, huh? How about me?"
My name's Antenny Boy.
And literally
I can pick up radio stations from time, space, and dimension, see?
Literally a month later, everyone's okay with having tryouts for the new Legion member, and so we get Antenna Boy, creepy-looking kid.
Antenna Boy, yeah. Kifurb Bez is his name. And interestingly, like many of the rejects from this time frame, he does show up again. Now, unlike many of the rejects from this time frame, he never makes the main Legion.
Right. We'll talk about that later in this episode. We also get Dynamo Kid, which a great name, by the way.
Yeah.
But turns out he's using Hokum again to convince everyone that he has powers.
Stormboy Redux. He's using gimmickry to fake having superpowers. And in this case, it's so that he can write an expose. He's a reporter for probably the Daily Planetoid.
Yeah.
It doesn't say the name of his paper, but it's got to be something funny like that.
I was really hoping that it was going to be that rich kid again.
You were hoping for Lester Spiffany?
I was hoping for Lester to come back.
You know what? Here's what we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen. For every episode of the Legion Clubhouse that has a moment where we have tryouts, we're going to decide that one of these guys is secretly Lester Spiffany in disguise.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to do going forward. Hundreds and hundreds of issues are still possible, but this is the first time that Lester Spiffany came back pretending to be Dynamo Kid.
Pretending to be a reporter. Yes, pretending to be a reporter. So that guy gets chased off.
But yeah, Invisible Kid looks like he's ready to pop him one. And also, did you remember that there was an Invisible Kid?
I forgot that there was an Invisible Kid, by gosh.
We haven't seen him in forever.
No, and the only way that you know it's him is the fact that he's wearing the little green tiara. And he's got the yellow and green costume, because when I first saw it, I was like, oh, there's Matter Eater Lad. And then I was like, oh, wait, no, that's not him.
Should be noted that Invisible Kid's costume isn't actually yellow and green. It's brown and green, but that's okay. You always know an Invisible Kid by their headband.
Yeah, that's how you know. Dead giveaway. Yep. But not
every continuity, an Invisible Kid has either a headband or a skunk stripe in their hair.
Not a dead giveaway is Legionnaire Lemon. Liz Lemon.
Legionnaire Liz Lemon. Codename Marvel Lad.
Marvel Lad shows up with it's a weird costume, right? It's brown.
I love it.
It's got pleated. It's got pirate.
He's got a Jerry
sleeves.
Seinfeld puffy shirt.
Yeah.
He's got a crosshatch belt. He's got red tights and brown boots, and he's got this weird curly hair, like his name is Finnegan. Because, every Irish person in the comics in 1963 had red curly hair. It's the law.
And, it's right after the death of Lightning Lad. And so surely this must be Superboy playing a trick on them.
No, it's not Superboy. And don't call me Shirley.
And so he's like, hey, expose me to kryptonite. Look, doesn't work. Hey, look, I'm also not reacting to that lead, so I can't be a Daxamite.
Uh-huh.
So after that, they have him do all these other tests, like go out and find some plutonium or something.
Fluvium.
I'm sorry, some fluvium. What's fluvium?
He must be wearing a costume that can't be destroyed by friction with the air. Fluvium is what you get when you cross effluvium.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
An eh.
Yeah. Yeah, so part of me wants to, at this point in the story where suddenly Marvel Lad runs out, he goes, I'll be back in a minute. Part of me wants to say that there are multiple people pulling a shimp, right? Where it's like, hey, we're all trading costumes. Each of us has a power, and we're just doing this so fast that we're pulling a trick on everybody.
Which is a possibility because you see him using X-ray vision. You see him flying. You see him using super strength. He definitely has a lot of powers. And since we know he's not a Kryptonian, we know he's not a Daxamite. Well, we know that he doesn't have the Daxamite weaknesses.
Right.
My question is, where's Ultra Boy?
Lemon. Where is Ultra Boy?
Where is Ultra Boy? That's the question. You know where Ultra Boy is?
Where? He's dead, Jim.
Not inside Marvel Lad's costume. Oh,
and then
herring.
Here comes something that I'm pretty sure this is the first appearance, number one. And all these other times where I'm like, oh, here are these really cool things that they could resurrect in the future. Suddenly out of nowhere, a Sun Eater starts to attack the sun.
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure this is the first appearance of a Sun Eater.
It is, and it's a good thing that they didn't bring those back because that could have been fatal for a Legionnaire.
Oh, Matthew. Wait till I tell you the story of Darkest Night.
Don't you dare.
Okay, I'll save it for a future episode of Legion Clubhouse. But I got to tell you, there might be a Legionnaire who dies.
No!
I will also give you a little heads up that in the future, Sun Eaters do not look like hairy Bigfoots.
Crates and crates of Bigfoots is what they look like. Sun Eaters, well, sometimes when you're eating a sun, it depends on what you want to eat.
You see, like, Sun Eater just looks like a Cookie Monster with his eyeballs plucked out, and as he's grabbing bits of...
is for Corona. It's good enough to eat.
As he's scooping up bits of the sun, it looks like he's like, nom, 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 on a hamburger, on a sun burger.
We love eating sun. Nom, nom, nom. Sunspots are best part.
So he defeats a Sun Eater, which is one of the biggest, baddest things in the future. We'll find out in a future episode of Legion Clubhouse. That the Sun Eaters are like the worst thing that anyone could ever encounter because once it starts eating the sun, that's it for that system.
Well, you know, when you're eating a sun, if you don't have a side dish, first of all, it's very, very difficult.
Well, okay, so for Marvel Lad, once he defeats the Sun Eater and comes back, they do have a side dish of options for him. When they come back, they have him fight the Great Gonzo, Zorak, and a random, hey man, what's up, Muppet?
Hey, he's probably that one Muppet who always gets frustrated when Grover tries to serve him soup.
Oh, yeah, that's probably it. So Marvel Lad goes off. He comes back. He says, look at the space monitor. I've taken care of these. And they're like, ha, got you. The only way you could have taken care of those monsters is by killing them. And that means you're not worthy to be a Legionnaire, Lemon, Marvel Lad.
But Marvel Lad laughs his arrogant laugh and says, ha, 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 au contraire, mon frère. When I landed on planet Brog, my X-ray vision revealed that it's just a 3D projector.
Set up by space pirates. By the way, you might want to call the science police so that they can go arrest the space pirates. You know, I love the naming of these planets. Somewhere on the internet, there has to be a Legion of Superheroes planet name generator.
There should be.
And if there's not, yes, there should be. So then the final thing is, they say, well, if you're so great, create an element that's never been created before. And then I was like, oh my gosh, is this the introduction of Element Lad?
Right. Yeah, that would be interesting. But even more, it's not Element Lad.
It's not Element Lad, no.
Even more, though, fascinating is the way that he creates the element. He combines the atomic weight of gold, 79, silver, 47, and iron, 26, and makes a total of 152.
I think that's how it works, doesn't it?
That is exactly not how it works.
I'm pretty sure it is. You combine the electrons in their shells and the outer. I mean, chemistry's hard, man.
That is not. Well, first of all, I don't think it's chemistry. And second of all, I don't think it works. But in any case, the creation of element 152 results in a major signpost in Legion history.
Okay, what is that?
Element 152 is an anti-gravity metal which floats.
Interesting.
And while we don't see it in these pages, it is later used to create an important part of a Legionnaire's arsenal.
So there actually is an element 152, just so people
Really?
are aware of this. It's
What's
called
it called?
unpentbium. 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 It's a hypothetical element in the periodic table with the symbol UPB. And as of this recording, no attempt has been made to synthesize ubintium because it's not the year 2965.
Yeah, some gold, some silver, and some iron, and just whack them together real hard.
They should have named it Marveladonium in honor of Marvel Lad, who created it first. Oh, wait, what am I saying?
They could have named it Largandium.
Ooh, why would they want to name it Largandium?
Well, because Marvel Lad is secretly Largand of Daxum.
Dun, dun, dun. And for those of you that are going, Largand, what we're talking about Mon-El, people.
That name sounds familiar. Why does that?
Yes,
Mon-El.
take the word lemon and rearrange it. Oh, you know, Shrinking Violet. Shouldn't you have thought about that a long time ago?
You know what? Shrinking Violet is very smart.
I like Shrinking Violet. She and Triplicate Girl are two of my favorite Legion members.
She gets really interesting in the 80s, too, when she starts getting angry and starts punching people right in the face.
Yeah. When she becomes Emerald Vi, right? Mm-hmm. Whenever she gets taken over by the Emerald Eye of Ekron. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, that's like 35 years from now. So that could be.
I know, and let's not even
episode 96.
Let us not even get into the fate of Pharaoh Lad. Oh, sorry.
Pharaoh.
That's coming later in
Pharaoh Lad with all the powers of a pharaoh.
Yes. How can Mon-El be out of the Phantom Zone for so long? He should be dead by now. And how did he not react to lead?
Well, I'll tell you, it's a secret. Brainiac 5. You remember Brainiac 5?
Oh, yeah, I remember Brainiac 5. He comes from a long line of Brainiacs and has this really horrible complex that cripples him so much that he blames everything he does on his ancient ancestor, who was evil. Evil, I tell you.
He finally used the big brain that he has, like the big brain on Brad, to create a permanent serum. But because he wasn't sure it was permanent yet, he pulled Mon-El out of the Phantom Zone and gave him the serum and gave him a couple of days exposure. And while they were doing that, since they're teenagers, they decided they were going to perform an elaborate Shrek and mess with their friends, because the foundation of the Legion of Superheroes is three things: justice, superpowers, and mercilessly mocking and tricking your friends.
Oh, and not only mocking your friends, but when they realize that this formula is working perfectly, Mon-El is like, hey, send me back to the Phantom Zone because I want to go and go, yeah, to all the bad guys that are trapped there.
You got to give him credit. Those are Kryptonian monsters. These guys are killers, and they're like,
oh yeah, he had to endure 1,000 years of their torment and torture.
And then he goes back to the Kryptonian Phantom Group W bench, and he tells them all, you guys suck. You're terrible and bad and evil, and now I'm away from you permanently. Neener pants, middle finger.
I'm wondering, though, this is really weird, and I don't know if this is because they needed filler or what was going on, but we get like the whole Superboy killed me origin story again.
Yeah, and I want to suspect that that's two things in play. One, you do remember that at this point, Mort Weisinger, the editor of the Superman titles, believed that the kids reading the book would age out every 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, true.
At this point, it's been almost 6 years since they showed us Mon-El's actual origin. So they recap it here for the kids who didn't see it or didn't know it. And then they also give us that moment where, you know, the Kryptonian villains are floating around and Mon-El's like, ha ha. And of course, the villains are like, someday we'll escape and destroy them all.
Yeah. So I think what's important in this issue, Matthew, is Element 152, while they have flight belts, eventually gives them the power to create flight rings.
Correct. And the flight rings are probably the most iconic piece of Legion equipment.
Well, it's certainly not their costumes.
There's nothing wrong with their costumes. Shrinking Violet has a cute little choker, and Mon-El has like a Nehru jacket with a big blue cape. And then, of course, the issue ends with Mon-El going, "Only one thing spoils my happiness. If only Lightning Lad were here to celebrate with us."
And he might be in a future issue. Keep reading Adventure Comics, kids. Editor.
Will Mon-El make good his pledge to save Lightning Lad from death?
I think that it would be super, super cool, Matthew, if in one of our Critical Hit podcasts, we could all sit around and play, maybe not Legion of Superhero members, but maybe like Substitute Heroes or something like that, but at least get to play an RPG set in the world of Legion of Superheroes. I only wish something like that existed.
Well,
What?
Now that you mention it,
Huh?
it kind of does.
What?
And it's both fascinating and infuriating at the same time.
So tell me about the DC Superhero RPG, if you know much about that.
Well, the DC Superhero RPG was something I played a little bit in the 80s and 90s, but essentially it's that same sort of Dungeons and Dragons expectation where you have your character, they have a series of stats.
Yeah, attribute points and aura
depending
attributes.
On who the character is, you may have more, like, for instance, Hal Jordan, his willpower stat is massive.
Oh, yeah, cool.
Everybody has their thing, but the DC Universe characters were all broken down, including the Legionnaires.
Yeah.
And there is a source book, a Legion of Superheroes source book. It's actually entitled $29.95, marked down from 30. The Legion of Superheroes source book. And the fascinating part about it is that it gives you tons of insight and backstory on the Legion, on all the characters, biographies for the heroes, even the villains, things like the equipment, Element 152. But this is the infuriating part that I mentioned earlier.
Okay.
It's written by Tom and Mary Bierbaum.
Okay.
Who started as Legion fans and eventually became professional writers and wrote Legion of Superheroes during the Volume 4, what's also referred to as the 5-year gap Legion.
Right. Which you like 5-year gap Legion, right? Isn't that your favorite?
Love it.
Okay.
It's not necessarily my favorite, but it's definitely one that I love because the things about it that are good are really good. And I've spoken about the theory that where goeth the Legion, goeth the world.
Right.
This is $29.95. This started in 1989. This is before the 90s, but it's a grim, dark, futuristic crapsack world that really predicts a lot of where 90s comics would go in the next 5 years.
The other interesting thing, too, is in this Legion sourcebook, you are not playing the Silver Age version of the characters. You are playing their 5-year later counterparts or their grown-up counterparts. So, for example, our good buddy Lightning Lad, if he were alive, has a dexterity of 6, a strength of 4, a body of 5. You know, I've seen him in the comics. I would give him a 7.5. I mean, he's not that bad. He's got an intelligence of 8, a will of 8, a mind of 9, an influence of 4, an aura of 7, and a spirit of 7. That must be when he's dead.
No.
He's got an initiative of 18, and he has 75 hero points.
Right.
He has his powers
you can
include
trade those hero points in for an extra hero once you buy 6, as long as you fill out all the stamps on your card.
He has his powers are lightning 12, gadgetry 3, medicine 4, science 6. His advantages are he has a connection to the Legion of Superheroes High, and he's scholar, agriculture, and business. Who knew that he was an ag business major?
In the 5-year gap Legion, he is actually retired and running a farm on his home planet of Wynneth.
Which is interesting because in one of the reboots, and maybe it's a origin story of the 3rd or 4th reboot, where Lightning Lad and his brother are working in a seed factory when they get their powers.
I believe that is actually the 3-boot Legion.
Okay. Oh, here's Lightning Lad's drawbacks. Are you ready for this, listeners? He's married.
Yep.
He's got motivation, responsibility of power, and he has a wealth of 11. It's about my bank account right now, 11.
A wealth of 11 is really good, though.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
So
a wealth of 11 doesn't mean he has 11 space bucks.
oh, okay. And it's
It
because
means that he has a business and he has all sorts of what do you call those things where you have investments?
Investments.
Investment. Yeah,
Okay.
we'll call them that.
His drawback is married because he's married to Saturn Girl. Bum bum bum.
Hey.
Sorry to spoil it for you, but it says right there, Imra Ardeen Rands, Saturn
Be
Girl.
nice to Imra Ardeen Rands.
Drawback, married. She also has a wealth of 11. So did this play much like a Dungeons and Dragons D20 system where you had the multiple dice and you did all the rolls and everything? Or was this maybe more along the lines of a different game system?
It's been a long time since I played it, but I recall it being very similar to Dungeons and Dragons with different mechanics in terms of the thing, but the stat bonuses are roughly the same. It's, attribute based. So whatever your big power is will give you a bonus for those particular things. And then, of course, you have, God, I can't even remember how it works. You have like a table of possible actions depending on how difficult they are. So it's, in some ways, that part of it feels a little bit like Rodrigo's skill challenges.
Right.
Where you say, I want to do X, Y, and Z. And they're like, well, that's going to be really super difficult. So you got to roll X, Y, and 7.
Now, I'm not sure a lot of people know that this thing ever existed.
I think they do because, well, first of all, the people who made this also made Chill, if you ever played Chill.
No, I have not.
They did Time Masters. You ever played Time Masters?
I've played Time Masters, yes.
Yeah. They did a number of games that had the same basic rules. Now, again, I don't know that it's high profile, but there was a time, there's actually a Watchmen supplement for the DC Universe role-playing game that's
cool.
Fascinating. And much like the Legion book, there's a lot of material in there that isn't in the actual story, which is what makes this book most infuriating, other than the fact that it's full of Brainiac 5 haikus.
Well, what do you mean that it's infuriating? Because I don't know. I'm guessing before 0 Hour, this stuff would be in continuity. For example, we find out that Largan's birthday is March 27th.
Yeah, that's one of the things. Not just that kind of material, not stuff like birthdays or secrets or bits of business of the past. There are actual important parts of the characters and important bits of the story setting for Volume 4 Legion that you only know if you read the Legion book, if you will read that source book.
So that's why I'm asking, is this stuff in continuity? I mean, it would have to be. I mean, it's an official DC licensed product.
Well, the 5-year gap Legion no longer exists.
True.
Because that's a disavowed timeline. When they rebooted and then they retro booted back to the first Legion, that Legion's stories cut off before the Crisis on Infinite Earths, which is 30 issues before the time skip that jumps us 5 years into the future. So not only does it not exist,
it never existed.
Canonical at one point, but it now never existed. It's an alternate universe that's just a timeline floating in space out there.
In this Silver Age that we are reading through now, this stuff isn't even canonical for that.
Correct.
Wow.
But it is fascinating. It's really, really heavy to read it. And it's interesting to see the creator's fascination with blue eyes. Because all the Legionnaires are listed as having blue eyes, but depending on which character they are, like I believe they say that Lightning Lads are flashing blue and Cosmic Boys are intelligent blue. And I'm like, dude, just say they're all blue-eyed and get it over.
Maybe it just depends on the angle that you're looking at. Maybe in some light conditions it's blue, some light conditions it's green. Who's to say?
Well, the source book tells you. It says right there, flashing intelligent blue. You can't tell me that says green. I know how blue is spelled.
So it looks
Legionnaire lemon.
So it looks like as you get into this book, it then gives you like these personal log excerpts, which I guess are the actual adventures you're going on, or were people expected to whip up their own adventures based on the source book?
There's plenty of stuff in there that you can use as adventure hooks. There's bits of stuff where you can play characters who are in the Legion or Legion adjacent or interacting with the Legion. You can play the Legion. You can bring in your own characters. And at this point in time, they actually give us information and biographies on characters who hadn't yet appeared in the volume for Legion.
Oh, the Dominion appear in here.
Yeah, the Dominion are all over volume 4. The Dominion are the big bads.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Sorry, spoilers. When we get to Legion Clubhouse episode 104 and we go over that,
yeah,
I'll explain why that was a problem.
Yeah. So so here's something that I have a problem with this source book is it is essentially a monster manual or a player's guide. If you were to pick this up, if you were someone who is really into the DC role-playing game, it does not give you, it's a source book. It's not a module book. So
you have to have the other books in order to play the game.
Were there modules in the other books?
Yeah. There are some. I mean, you can actually buy game modules for it.
Okay.
There are a couple of specific modules that are Legion pre-5-year gap.
Mm-hmm.
I know I have one that's the Volume 3 Legion, right about the time of the Legion of Supervillains War from 1985, 6, in that neighborhood. So there are other things. But yeah, you have to have more than just this source book to be able to successfully play the DC Universe role-playing game.
I wonder, though, how many people, like, for example, people who are really into the Legion of Superheroes, die-hard fans, people who may be writing comic books today, not to mention any names. But I wonder if you said, hey, when is Largan's birthday? If that person would be able to rattle off the birth date based on this source book.
March 27th, according to the Legion source book.
Yeah, I wonder how many people would be able to rattle that off, though. And how many people, because to be honest, I do not remember this ever being out there. I did not even know that there was an RPG system for DC Comics.
Oh yeah,
at the time.
I have the Legion source book. I have the Watchmen module. I have a whole bunch of stuff for this game. I don't know that I ever finished a game.
Oh, guess what? Guess who's going to be GMing the next game? I think Matthew, we should play this. I really do. You can do it. It'll be fun. I want to be Chlorophyll Lad.
Chlorophyll Kid.
Sorry, Chlorophyll Kid.
Don't You can't mix up your lads and your kids. That's like mixing up your kings and your lads, and it's not right.
The other thing that's a problem with this source book, and again, I guess you're needing the other source material that you'll probably send to me. No character sheets, none of that stuff.
Nope.
Got to transfer it all over. Stupid A's RPG.
Well, yeah, I'm sure they had online support in 1992.
I need an electronic version of the DC superheroes character sheet stat. I'm serious, Matthew. I think you should GM. You should GM a Legion of Superheroes adventure.
We'll see.
I bet you could even take the stats in this book and apply it to another system.
We'll see.
Yeah, that's going to happen. It's going to happen in a couple of weeks.
If you enjoy the show, we would appreciate your support. You can find out more and become a Legion Clubhouse member at patreon.com/major spoilers. Adventure Comics number 306, The Legion of Substitute Heroes. Published March 1963. Written by Edmund Hamilton with art by John Forte. Rejected from the Legion, a group of wannabe heroes try to prove their worth.
I want you to know, Matthew, that if you try out for the Legion of Superheroes,
which I have,
and you don't get in, all is not lost.
That is true. Simply because you do not make it into the Legion does not mean that you do not have something to contribute.
And that is what this issue is all about. Everyone knows about the Legion of Superheroes at this point. But how many people,
the greatest heroes of the 30th century.
But how many people know of the Legion of Substitute Heroes?
I'm going to go with everybody.
Now, here's a cool thing that we teased in one of the teasers that you may have heard.
Mm-hmm.
Polar Boy shows up, and his ability is to make everything cold. Because they come from a planet of suns, and they've developed powers to keep everyone chill.
The planet Thar. Which is right over Thar. Behind the Dar.
I don't know. If I had a choice between someone that can freeze stuff and someone who can eat the bars off of a lead pipe, I might go with the kid that can turn everybody frozen.
This is the point where the Legion paints itself into a corner. Because when you reject Polar Boy for his powers not being useful enough, and you reject Night Girl for her powers not being diverse enough or versatile enough, I guess is the way.
Well, how many adventures are they going to at night? Because her powers don't work if the sun's shining on her.
But this is important. They've already got a guy whose thing is eating and a guy whose thing is going gaboingy.
Right.
If you have those guys in the group and you reject a Polar Boy, you kind of really have to admit that you're just bringing in the ones that you like and making excuses for what you're doing. Because, frankly, Polar Boy doesn't even do anything particularly wrong. They're just like, your power is unusual, but it might hurt us at a critical moment.
And this is the problem with Polar Boy's powers is he can't direct his cold spells. He can only make everything around him cold. And so that would include, if you're thinking about it, in a fight, that would mean that the Legion members could be affected by his super chill powers.
But the same is true of Garth's lightning abilities. The same is true of Dirk's sun powers. The same is true.
But those are that they can direct those energy beams.
Of a Ricochet, of Chuck Tane, which, by the way, I think is a lovely. It sounds like a dish at a very bad French restaurant. I'll have the Ricochet of Chuck Tane with a fried egg on top and spam.
So, yeah, and Night Girl, I can understand why you don't use her because, again, most of your adventures are going to take place in the daytime or above ground. And so unless you have a night shift version of the Legion, it's great that she's super strong and has that beehive that goes up to the sky.
If only there were a character in the Legion who cast darkness.
Oh, like another girl, right? A lass
like
of some kind.
A lass with shadow powers.
Oh, man. They miss out a lot of opportunities to do speedball specials with these characters.
They really do. Can you imagine the power, though, of the Shadow Lass Night Girl team?
That actually would be pretty cool because now do the Legion members have special goggles or something that allow them to see in Shadow Lass's umbra?
No, but many of them have vision powers, Ultra Boy.
Because that would be pretty cool where there's a room full of bad guys. Shadow Lass goes boof and everything goes blackout. And while the bad guys are searching around, Night Girl is just biff, boom, pow, turn on the lights, everyone's knocked out.
Lyta comes in and punches people in the face. I'll say this. We talked about Matter Eater Lad having the greatest costume in Legion history. Close second is Lyta.
Yeah.
Night Girl, because she has this just
jet black,
completely jet black leotard with a cape and an owl red on her chest. But it's really,
and she's like super tall. She's like super tall too. I mean, I don't, unless Polar Boy is just a little shorty, but she is tall. And then she has a beehive on top of that has got to put her up in the 6.5, 7 foot territory.
If you look, you can see that Polar Boy barely comes up to Sun Boy's chest.
Right.
Polar Boy is kind of a dorkfish in this issue.
Okay, now let's not be mean about dorkfish because Polar Boy's origin comes from a kid who wrote in.
That's very true. Polar Boy in issue 304, which is the story where Lightning Lad died, actually. A kid wrote into the Bits of Legionnaire Business letter column and said, we should suggest our own heroes who could become Legionnaires. And mine is a guy with cold powers named Polar Boy.
Yeah, he literally says, I suggest a new character, Polar Boy, who has the power of freezing to ice anything in his area. How about it? Buddy Levine, Northbrook, Illinois. And then the editor says, great idea, readers. Take note and start sending us your suggestions on a postal card. Postal card. We'll print the best ones, and we'll always accept new characters and in future Legion tales. That is from the editor. And shows, sure enough, one issue later, this is pretty cool. Eddie Levine gets his character.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Buddy Levine.
Buddy Levine gets his character in the book. And actually, Polar Boy is not the only character who starts out as someone's suggestion in the letter column.
Yeah.
But
is there a Jim Steranko Legion member?
No.
Oh, okay.
But it would be kind of interesting. When you go through and you read these, and now I can't remember, and I feel bad about this, but if you go through and you read all of the letter columns, there are a couple of different ones that pop up, And they will say, hey, what about Lightning Girl face? Which you can't do.
Stick around. We've got the return of Lightning Face in a few issues.
That's right. Lightning Face may or may not be Lightning Dead.
So we should probably mention the other characters that are also rejected in this issue. Actually, Polar Boy is the only one that's rejected as he's moping down the avenue of superheroes, which, again, another just avenue of statues of the Legion members. As he's moping down, that's when he bumps into Night Girl. And then she's like, hey, let me introduce you to the rest of the losers. Here's Chlorophyll Kid. Here's Stone Boy. And here's Fire Lad.
Fire Lad. And if you look in the background of Polar Boy's tryout, you see Night Girl and Chlorophyll Kid.
Mm-hmm.
So they clearly were rejected during that.
Yeah.
And of course, as with so many, we find another character who doesn't have a power so much as he comes from a place where people are weird. Stone Boy from planet Zwen just turns to stone because on his world, it rotates really slow. So they spend 6 months in darkness. So rather than deal with 6 months of darkness, they just turn to stone.
Yeah, and we'll
like that ELO song.
We'll just hatch after the sun comes back up. And then you got poor Chlorophyll Kid, who has the worst mother in the world because she lets her toddler wander off at the garden center, and he falls into a vat of hydroponic growth serum.
You know what it actually is?
What is it?
It's fertilizer in more ways than one.
I'm sure, but it's like he falls in and the mom rushes over and she's like, "Oh, my little boy, will that solution hurt him?" And the guy's like, "Hey man, we got rid of the EPA a long time ago. This kind of shit doesn't matter anymore." I hope he's okay. He's still breathing. We'll see what happens.
No one can really tell what effect this powerful solution might have on a human being.
We gave up on
this waiver.
We gave up on science decades ago.
But 5 rejects are stronger than 1 reject because 6 is greater than 1. I don't know if you knew that.
Yes, 5 is greater than 1, and they decide to form their own Legion of Substitute Heroes. Heroes that will step in when the Legion are out of the picture. When they are off on the planet, all of them all together doing something big and bad, and something else pops up, they want to be there. So they spend all night carving their headquarters out of a mountain, and then the next morning, they're like, man, you think we're really good enough to be like Legion members or even substitute Legion members? I mean, once again, talk about kids that have some real hang-up issues.
They do have some confidence issues. And
I'm not even sure if it's confidence issues as much as it is, acceptance issues or rejection issues.
Problems.
Yeah.
They probably all got abusive parents.
Probably.
You'll never be good enough, little Chlorophyll Kid.
Well, I'm going to go drown myself in a vat of this green stuff.
You do it. I don't care.
And then she feigns. So before they have to haul her away, she feigns ignorance of the whole incident.
Wait, what? Oh, no.
But the substitute heroes are remarkably resilient because not only do they carve their headquarters, they build their spaceship.
Hey, instead of moping about everybody, let's build our spaceship. Why don't you just go buy a spaceship at the Spaceship Emporium?
There is also something very important that happens in this story. Night Girl is standing in the middle of their clubhouse, and she says, here in the clubhouse where there's no sunlight, I can use my super strength freely. It's clearly bright inside the clubhouse. So it's not that she needs darkness. It's just that she can't be in direct sunlight.
Right.
She's like a gremlin, which really makes the asterisk on her super strength even less of an asterisk.
Oh, yeah, because you could be fighting inside all sorts of times.
Was be indoor, and it's the future. They're always indoors.
Yeah. Everything's covered with space domes in the future.
That's right.
So they go on several adventures to try to help out, but fortunately or unfortunately, the Legion gets there first, and the Legion's not making fun of them or anything. They're just like, hey, man, we got other things to do. You go do your own thing. Go play and have fun. But they're not really being mean to the Legion of Substitute Heroes.
Right. They're not trying to be incredibly awful or reject them. They're just trying to make sure they don't get themselves hurt.
Once again, there is a printing error in this issue where Brainiac 5 is totally blue. I mean, his hands are blue. I don't know who their colorist was, but I'm wondering if there's some color blindness going on.
No, it actually really is the 4-color printing process, and it was.
But they could do green. They could do green.
But it was super complicated, and you see this a lot where Spider-Man, especially, will be all red, and then one chunk of his costume will just have yellow. They actually had to go in and manually spot in these colors so that the printing press would recognize them. So if you didn't put enough red in your blue, you wouldn't get green.
Yeah, I guess. When the substitute heroes are at their lowest, suddenly a bunch of seed pods, like a weird Invasion of the Body Snatchers episode, come flitting down to Earth. And Chlorophyll Kid's like, hey, I'll help out. Let me grow one of these things. And it turns into a horrible monster.
Right. It looks like the monsters that turned the Justice League into trees in their first appearance.
Yes, exactly. Maybe the same group.
Ooh, maybe it is. But fortunately, they're no match for Lita Jaff and her mighty, mighty beehive.
Yeah.
And also super strength. She kind of smacks them down. And Fire Lad sneezes fire all over them. And then they discover that the seeds came from an evil planet on robot ships, and that the Legion is involved in fighting a diversion. The real invasion is the Seed Pod Men.
Yes, and that's why the Legion of Superheroes show their worth, because they go to the planet and they defeat these monsters and are able to return home, and everyone's congratulating the real Legion of Superheroes. Meanwhile, the substitute heroes are happy to sit on the sidelines and wave and say, you guys did a good job. And secretly they're all like, we know who the real heroes are.
Yep. Someday maybe people will know about us. And this reminds me a lot of, we talked briefly a few issues ago about Supergirl in the orphanage at Midvale, acting as Superman's secret weapon.
Right.
And doing things but never getting seen. This is very much like that. The subs actually spend a few issues like this as just secret guys in the background doing work to keep the Legions, the quote unquote real heroes, to keep their hype machine rolling. Basically.
Yeah. But there's a couple of things in this issue that are fascinating, super fascinating. I mean, for one thing, the substitute heroes, without a doubt, murderize all these plant things.
They do. They kill the heck out of them.
And that's one of the things that you can't be a Legion of Superhero member if you're killing things.
Well, apparently you can.
Well, no, because they're not Legion of Superhero members. They're substitute heroes. So they can kill without a problem. So that's kind of like the out for the Legion of Superheroes, right? It's like, well, we can't kill these people, but we could send in the Legion of Superheroes who don't have that rule, and we're hands-free. Our hands are not covered in blood.
I'm sure that's exactly what these shiny kids from the future are thinking. Let's make sure that we have a quasi-military murder force that we can send in. That's exactly what it is.
Well, we know, Brainiac 5 is still like, am I good? Am I bad? I mean, he could secretly be plotting with these kids in the background and sending them the messages that, hey, we're going to go fight these robot drones, and you guys can go and kill all these Planet of Plant monsters.
Yeah, and I don't think that that's happening, and I don't think that that's even intended. But it's a fascinating read, much like my assumption that whenever they do something that feels like it might be progressive futurism, I'm going to read it as such, and you can't take that away from me.
No, I like future progressivism. That's really great. The other thing that is really important to point out, and we've, over these last, 9 episodes of Legion Clubhouse, we've pointed out new rules as they've appeared. We point out new things that show up as they relate to the Legion of Superheroes. Now, not only if you get rejected from the Legion of Superheroes could you become a Legion of Substitute Heroes member, the other thing is, as a parting gift from the Legion of Superheroes, you get a flight belt.
You know why you get that now?
Why?
Because last issue, Mon-El created Element 152, which can be used to make flight rings. So now they have a whole bunch of these flying belts that they don't care about.
They're just sitting around.
They're like, here, throw these at the schmuck bait. These guys, we don't want these. Here, take this thing that I don't want.
Which is another weird thing,
as your
right?
prize, you get a bag of Saturn Girls trash.
Yeah. I mean, but it's a weird thing, right? It's like, hey, we have no use for these AK-47s because we're using the AK-48s these days. So here you go. Take a bunch of our junk technology, which is still really good and usable, and, in the wrong hands, these giveaways that the Legion of Superheroes are doing could cause trouble in the future.
Well, all it would really allow you to do is fly around Metropolis, and
it allows you to fly. If you're going to commit a crime, what's the best way to get away from the science police? Fly away.
The science police have flying cars.
Yeah, but they don't have flying belts.
They have helmets made out of balloons from a child's birthday party. They will find you.
I don't know. I think that giving away
bad boys. What you gonna do? What you gonna do when the science police get you?
Science Police is filmed on location.
On the streets of Metropolis, and also in the alleys, and also above Metropolis because some of these idiots can fly.
And also the Nine Planets, and also the Nine Planets ice cream parlor.
Doink doink.
I really have a problem with them just giving away freely something that is, unless you can go to unless maybe you can buy flight belts at like Neiman Marcus or something, and they're 10,000 or 100,000 credits in the future.
The only person who can afford that is Lester Spiffany.
Well, yes, but I wonder if it's like, iPads and iPhones and those kinds of things today are like really expensive. And so if you get one as a prize, it's kind of cool.
I imagine that these are more like the future version of a Segway. They're kind of expensive, and they're when you use them, you look goofy, but the people who use them feel like they're special because they're the only ones who are, running around on Wally's frozen corpse. And it's kind of the same thing with a flying belt. When you have an anti-gravity belt in the future, pretty much everybody has a flying car. It's like, what were those hoverboards that they had last year that kept bursting into flames?
Yeah.
And the obnoxious kids would ride around on their hoverboards and go,
right.
whir. That's what this is. This is the equivalent of a hoverboard.
Okay. Well, I think the underlying message of Adventure Comics 306 is, if you can't get into an exclusive club, create your own exclusive club and reject other people.
I think there might be a slightly more noble message in there.
Oh, sorry.
Everyone has something to contribute. And even if you don't get all the glory, it's okay. You still got to do what you got to do. You still got to fight the pod people from Omicron 12 with your polar powers and your night strength and your
fire breath,
hay fever. Yeah. And your whatever chlorophyll kid does.
I can grow corn.
I grow corn really well. You want to know what's interesting about the substitute heroes?
What's that?
Every one of these subs eventually does make full-time real membership in Legion.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forget about that. I mean, of course, we've got to wait 50 years for that to happen, but you're right. It does happen.
Not 50,
and so that's
30. And Polar Boy is actually elected Legion leader soon after joining in the 1980s, which is fascinating. And we talked about Antennae Lad a couple of episodes ago. Antennae Lad did not make Legion of Superheroes membership, nor did he make Legion of Substitute Heroes membership. Ask me what he made.
He made a collect call to his mom and said, "Mom, please pick me up. They rejected me again." No, what happened to Antenna Boy?
Antenna Boy actually becomes a member of the Substitute Heroes Auxiliary.
Oh my goodness.
Those heroes who are not quite ready for membership in the Legion of Substitute Heroes.
Wow. There's something to look forward to, kids.
Right?
Matthew, we've made it to our penultimate issue of the Legion Clubhouse, or at least it might be our penultimate issue of the Legion Clubhouse. We'll have to see how our Patreon members do at patreon.com/majorspoilers. Please sign up. We could use your help to keep this show going. We'd love to continue making it go.
We would. This is a fun show.
But before we get out of here this week, Matthew, we need to reflect back on what we learned in this week's comics. I think one of the things that we learned is that one of the best ways to grieve the loss of your friend is to pull pranks on everyone else, because laughter really is the best medicine.
Right. And we've learned that if you want to split an atom, you just hit it really hard against another atom, and eventually you'll have a new element.
I think we also learned that it doesn't matter who you are or what powers you have a purpose. And that shouldn't, and you being defined by someone else shouldn't prevent you from going out and doing something awesome with your other reject friends.
Unless you're short.
Well, so that wraps it up for this issue, and until next time, I'm Truth Above All, lad.
And I'm the Carnivore King.
The Legion Clubhouse is a production of Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC, and is produced by Steven Schleicher. Your hosts were Matthew Peterson and Steven Schleicher. You can follow Matthew at Mighty King Cobra and Steven at Major Spoilers. You can follow this podcast on Twitter at Legion Clubhouse. If you have questions or comments, send them to podcast@majorspoilers.com. I'm Jason Inman. Until next time, eat it, Grandpa.
This podcast is copyright 2017 by Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC.
You know what's really great about Mon-El?
Yeah, what's great?
His Bizarro is named Eda Mon-El.
Eda Mon-El?
Lemonade spelled backwards.
Oh my gosh. So Bizarro Mon-El is a real sourpuss, is what you're saying.
Waka waka.